is good now. I'll pass it over to you, Joe.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joseph Yu. I am the project manager for the proposed intersection reconstruction at Route 3, also known as Cambridge Road and Bedford Road and South Bedford Street project, which will be presented today. I work in the project management section at the Massachusetts Department of Transportation's Highway Division headquarters in Boston. Welcome to our live virtual design public hearing. During this presentation, we will explain the purpose of the hearing, provide an overview of the right-of-way procedures, and explain the design. Finally, we will explain how you can submit your comments and questions about the project, many of which can be included in the official hearing transcript. Before we get to the presentation, I'd like to hand it over to Leah, who will explain Zoom procedures.
Thank you, Joe. My name is Leah Grodstein, and I'm one of the producers, providing tech support and facilitating the Q&A. My co-producer, Hung Pham, is controlling the screen right now. We're going to go over some Zoom basics first. If you're unable to access the internet or you're having technical problems, you can call into the meeting at 301-715-8592 and use the webinar ID 835-7141-2218. And if you didn't catch all those numbers, they're also in your registration email. You can toggle the closed captioning on and off by clicking on the CC button. It's provided automatically by Zoom, so it might not be perfect. And you can use the view button in your upper right-hand corner to adjust the meeting view settings to your preference. And if you're having any trouble with the meeting technology, you can either call Zoom's tech support line at 888-799-9666, or use the Q&A button to message myself or Hung, and we'll try to help you out. This virtual public hearing is being recorded. MassDOT may choose to retain and distribute the video, still images, audio, or transcript, and all parts of the hearing are considered public record. By continuing attendance, you're consenting to participate in a recorded event. If you're not comfortable with this, you can choose not to participate in the parts of the hearing that might get recorded, like the Q&A, or you could excuse yourself entirely. Your mic and webcam are automatically disabled upon entering the hearing. We'll take Q&A at the end of the formal presentation, and at the very end of the hearing, once you close out of Zoom, a survey will pop up in your browser. Your feedback is very important to us. And finally, MassDOT's policy on diversity and civil rights is on screen. It states that all MassDOT activities, including public meetings and hearings, are meant to be free of discrimination. MassDOT complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements, preventing discrimination based on protected characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have questions or concerns, you can visit www.mass.gov/non-discrimination in transportation program, with dashes between those last four words, to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Thanks for joining us, and I'll hand it back over to Joe.
Thank you, Leah. Let me welcome our team members who've joined me this evening. As mentioned previously, I am Joseph Yu from MassDOT Project Management. With me, I have Michael Ruderman from MassDOT Right-of-Way. Michael will cover the right-of-way requirements necessary for this project. From District 4, we have the project development engineer, Brian Fallon. We also have Leah Grodstein and Hung Pham, who will be our producers for this evening. From the design consultants at VHB, retained by MassDOT, we have Joshua Triarchis, design manager. With him is Amy Silvovitz, the lead traffic engineer. From our municipal partners, we have Jay Corey from the City of Woburn, city engineer. And from the town of Burlington, we have Melissa Tintakalis, economic development director. And finally, we have Melissa Lupo from Advanced Court Reporting, Melissa will be making a verbatim transcript of tonight's hearing. The purpose of these hearings is to provide an assured method whereby the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can furnish to the public information concerning the state's highway construction proposals and to afford every interested resident of the area an opportunity to be heard on any proposed project. At the same time, these hearings afford the Commonwealth an additional opportunity to receive information from local sources should be of value in the state's final decisions on what the design should be advanced for the development. Notice for this hearing appeared in the Daily Times Chronicle on March 13th and 20th. A copy of this notice will be attached to the final hearing transcript. Please note that this project is currently estimated to be about $3.5 million, which will come from federal aid, with the Federal Highway Administration funding 80% of the total construction cost. Mass DOT will fund the remaining 20%. The project must be programmed in the statewide Transportation Improvement Program in the appropriate federal fiscal year for Mass DOT to solicit bids for eventual construction. The total estimated cost does not include any right-of-way acquisition costs. The design is expected to be completed in the summer of 2026. Please keep in mind that the project we will be presenting is still in the design stage, so all your questions and comments will be taken into consideration when completing the project's final design. As for the agenda, we will begin with the project history, move on to project initiation and goals, present the alternatives, go over the proposed improvements, discuss right-of-way, go over environmental impacts as well as construction and user impacts, and then wrap it up. And we'll go over we'll go over our next steps, provide some contact information, and then do a round of Q&A. So how did we get here? The project was initiated by the town of Burlington and the city of Woburn after many years of coordination. The project was programmed in the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, in the spring of 2021 through the Boston Metro Planning Organization. Initial field survey and wetland delineations were completed in the summer and fall of 2021. Preliminary design concepts were submitted and reviewed in February of 2022. To meet current practice standards, the team completed what is called the intersection control evaluation process. So the ICE is essentially an alternatives analysis for the intersection. This included a multi-stage review process to consider multiple context-sensitive control strategies that would provide an opportunity for a safer, more balanced, and cost-effective alternative to be selected. After the ICE process, a preliminary design, what we dubbed the 25% design, was submitted in the fall of 2023. After review of the 25% design, minor design refinements were completed, and the utility coordination site walk was initiated as well. All of this brings us to today's design public hearing. So why was this project initiated? We'll take a couple minutes to talk about the project goals, the objectives, and the crash history at this location. This intersection is well known in the area as a high crash location with noticeable congestion during peak travel times. And the intersection is listed in the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the HSIP, as a high crash cluster. From 2018 to 2020, there have been 21 documented crashes counted at this area. Due to the high crash concern, a road safety audit, or an RSA, was conducted in 2014. The audit is a formal safety review of the existing conditions where potential safety issues are identified. This led to recommendations that we'll discuss later in the presentation. In addition to the high crash potential of the existing intersection, the existing signal operates poorly with lengthy queues. The single travel lane, in each direction exacerbate this issue with a lack of dedicated turn lanes that limit the capacity of the intersection. The intersection also has minimal accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists. There were sidewalk improvements that were made in 2022. However, only 2 pedestrian crossings are provided, and the existing sidewalks are provided on limited portions of the intersection. There are currently 0 bicycle facilities that exist beyond the shared vehicular travel lanes. Lastly, the 350 and the 354 bus routes run through this intersection, and there is a lack of compliant bus stops, which we look to address as part of this project. So what do we want to accomplish? In summary, the goals of this project are threefold. Firstly, to enhance the safety of the intersection. Secondly, improve vehicular operations. And thirdly, integrate all roadway users. What were the alternatives considered? So there were several alternative designs considered for this intersection. I'll take a couple minutes right now to briefly summarize what they are. Please rest assured that the DOT, the municipalities, and other stakeholders have analyzed numerous alternatives when vetting the project to maximize the benefits previously discussed. So alternative 1 provided, which is a signalized intersection, provided dedicated turn lanes on each approach to minimize the conflicts and improve delay of through traffic operations. It also included a 5-foot wide on-street bike facilities with buffers between vehicular travel lanes, and also includes sidewalks on all approaches. Alternative 1A, also a signalized intersection, provided a similar approach. However, to minimize conflicts with vehicles and bicyclists, sidewalk level separated bike lanes were provided where feasible. We also have a third main alternative, dubbed Alternative 2, which is a 2x2 roundabout. So the project team looked at the feasibility of providing a 2-lane roundabout. With roundabouts, we met our criteria on providing safety and improving operations at this area, but the design would require significant land takings from abutters, as well as increased project costs for design elements, just retaining walls and utility relocation, both overhead and underground. So what is the preferred alternative? As you may have guessed, it's not the roundabout. So this slide shows a planned view of the proposed intersection improvements. The north arrow, as you can see on the top left corner of your screen, points to the top left corner of your screen. Just to orient yourselves, to address vehicular accommodations, we are proposing dedicated left turn lanes, as highlighted on the screen here. If you can, Hung. There we go. Dedicated left turn lanes on Cambridge Street. We also provide dedicated right turn lanes on Bedford Road and South Bedford Street, if you may. And a new traffic signal system, which is not highlighted, but can infer. Travel lanes will be 11 feet wide and turn lanes will be 10 feet wide. Moving on to address bicycle accommodations, we are proposing a 5-foot buffered bike lane on Cambridge Street. I think that will also be highlighted on the screen. And 5-foot separated bike lanes adjacent to sidewalk on Bedford and South Bedford. If you can highlight those, thank you. Moving forward, to address pedestrian accommodations, we are proposing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of each approach. Sorry, this doesn't have highlights. And new ADA compliant pedestrian curb ramps. Also, for pedestrian accommodations, there is a proposal for a combined 10-foot sidewalk at curb ramps, and intersection corners, dubbed mixing zones, and crosswalks on each leg of the intersection will be proposed. To address the transit accommodations for the 350 and 354 bus routes, we are proposing new bus stops that are compliant with ADA, also known as the Americans with Disabilities Act. These bus stops are optimally located to allocate space outside of the travel lanes. As you can see on the screen. Great. Moving on, the next couple slides show the cross-section view of the proposed improvements. Going left to right on Cambridge Street southbound, we have 5.5 foot wide sidewalk, 5 foot wide bike lane with a 3 foot wide bike buffer. Then we have a 11 foot wide through lane or right turn lane, followed by a 10 foot wide left turn lane, 11 foot wide travel lane, at this location, what is a 11 foot wide combined bus and bike lane, and a minimum 5.5 foot wide sidewalk. The next slide shows cross sections of the proposed improvements to Bedford and South Bedford eastbound, and please note that on the left side of your screens, you can see that the existing stone walls of the abutting properties will be maintained. So for those having a hard time looking at the screen, I'll just explain briefly left to right again. 5 foot sidewalk, 5.5 foot wide bike lane, separated from the roadway with a 1 foot shoulder, 10 foot wide right turn lane, 11 foot through lane / left turn lane, an 11 foot wide travel lane, 1 foot shoulder, 5.5 foot bike lane, and 5 foot sidewalk. So how will your property be impacted? This is where Michael Ruderman from Mass DOT's Right-of-Way Bureau will provide an excellent overview of the right-of-way process for this project. Michael?
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Ruderman, and I'm here from MassDOT's right-of-way section. Right-of-way is responsible for acquiring, as the slide says, all the necessary rights in public land for what we need to do in this project, the design, construction, and implementation. That could be any combination of temporary easements, permanent easements, or fee takings. Fee is where we take, all rights in ownership. The most important part of this slide is right here, where it says that if your property is going to be affected, particularly by any taking, we will reach out to you. We'll contact you. We'll ask when would you like to set up an appointment with one of my right-of-way agents, and we'll explain all the details on the plan, how eminent domain in the Commonwealth works, especially how you will be compensated. Your property will be appraised, and eventually one of our staff will come to you with what we call the award of damages. This is all part of the protections in the law that are afforded under Mass General Laws, Chapter 79. And if a project receives any federal funding, if we say federal participation, then there are federal laws which also protect the public's rights. In particular, third section, Title III of the Real Property Act in 1970. All of this will be explained at an in-person meeting if it turns out that your property is going to be affected. We won't know that for sure until we've developed our plans a little bit more and we get to the milestone in the development process, which we call the 75% stage. That's when we know what we need and where everything is located as far as potential takings. At that point, we'll reach out to you. So for now, I'm going to stay on this presentation. And if anyone has general questions about eminent domain, I'll be available at the end during the question and answer period. For now, though, Joe, I'm going to turn the general discussion back over to you.
Thank you, Michael. So what are the environmental, cultural resource, and community impacts associated with this project? Specifically for wetland resource areas, this project is not anticipated to have any direct impact on wetland resources. There is a small wetland feature on the northeast side of the intersection, as you can see on the map, the construction of the project will be limited only to the buffer zone of that wetland resource area. Moving forward, I'd like to take a minute to discuss Article 97 land impacts. For context, Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution declares conservation of natural resources for natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities for the people of the Commonwealth. Mary Cummings Park, which is protected land under Article 97, lies adjacent to the project area. The project limits, as you can see highlighted on the right-hand side of your screen. You can also see Mary Cummings Park in its entirety in this image. The improvements along South Bedford and the west side of Cambridge Road will minimally impact the park. Mitigations for impacts have been previously coordinated with the town of Burlington. And as part of the Article 97 process, legislative action, including a 2/3 majority vote, is needed for final approval. Moving on, we'll discuss the rest of the environmental permitting pretty briefly. The notice of intent will be filed with the conservation commissions of both Burlington and Woburn. This is for proposed work in the bordering vegetated wetland buffer zone previously mentioned. Article 97 legislature approval is needed for parkland impacts. This is also a threshold for the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, alongside our impacts to public shade trees. These two aspects of the project requires what is called a environmental notification form to be filed. Furthermore, due to the project's proximity to an environmental justice population, this elevates our MEPA reporting to an environmental impact report. And lastly, a programmatic categorical exclusion pursuant to the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, will be filed. So how will the road users be affected during construction? During the construction phase of this project, Mass DOT will administer and oversee the construction. Roadway users will should expect varying levels of traffic management setups, including shoulder closures or lane shifts. Additional lane closures may be required with police-controlled alternating traffic, and these lane closures will be allowed only during off-peak travel times. Please note that one lane of traffic will be maintained at all times during peak travel times to match existing conditions. Also maintained at all times during construction will be access to abutting properties. Access routes for pedestrians will also be maintained, including access to existing bus stops within the project limits. Mass DOT will provide notifications to the traveling public on anticipated traffic impacts. These coordination with municipalities is also highly important. Therefore, ongoing information will be posted on websites and message boards when possible. So our next steps, or our anticipated schedule. Immediately after this hearing, the project team will review and respond to all comments and questions received from this public hearing. Any changes to the project design will be incorporated into what is called our 75% design submission, which is scheduled for later this year in the summer. As part of the submission, environmental permits are expected to be filed and right-of-way impacts are expected to be finalized. Impacts to the Article 97 property mentioned earlier will be confirmed and coordination with the landholder will begin. The final design plans, specifications, and estimates will be anticipated throughout 2025, and the project is anticipated for advertisement in the spring of 2026. Construction is anticipated to begin in the summer of 2026. Please note that we are still in the early stages of project delivery. Therefore, changes can happen to the schedule as well as the design. So how will we keep you informed? Tonight is not the only time that you can discuss the project with the panelists. You can submit your questions and comments to the email provided on the screen, Mass DOT Project Management at dot.state.ma.us. You can also send in written comments addressed to Carrie LaValle, PE, the Chief Engineer, at Mass DOT, address 10 Park Plaza, Boston, Massachusetts, zip code 02116. Email is highly preferred, but you can choose to do either or. Please include the project file number, which is 608-067, in all correspondence to Mass DOT. For additional project information and to view the notice and flyer for this hearing, you can visit the Mass DOT events page in the Highway Division website at the second bullet of your screen, or you can also scan the QR code. So I'd like to, before we move on to questions and discussions, I'd like to thank all the players and organizations listed on this slide in helping promote and advertise tonight's public hearing. So thank you all for being so responsive to our requests. Now for questions and discussions. As stated previously, the purpose of this hearing is to solicit your input regarding this project. As the plans are not yet complete, we may not be able to answer all your questions or respond to all of your comments at this time. Our standard practice is to first allow our public officials to speak. So if there's anyone from the local, state, or federal level in attendance and wishes to speak, please raise your virtual hand at this time and state your name and title in the Q&A. Great. We have, I believe we have State Representative Haggerty. Hung or Leah, if you can let the representative be able to unmute himself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Well, first of all, thank you to everybody who's been working on this. Prior to being in the State House, I served at the local level for a long time, and I know how many people over the course of the past decade have really made this a priority in the city. And our current mayor Kincannon, former Mayor Galvin, our city engineer, and a lot of members of the council through the years have really fought hard for this. Current councilor Chuck Viola, I know, has worked hard on this. So thank you to everybody, as well as, of course, the town of Burlington for their continued commitment to this project. This is obviously a project that's been long in the queue and something that's been driven by safety. I grew up and still live probably about a half mile to a mile from this site. So I drive it often, and in my view, it's the most dangerous intersection in our city. So to see these types of improvements taking place is a real step in the right direction, and something that I think that everybody can take pride in, particularly the commitment that it's taken to get here. The Article 97 process, as folks I know at MassDOT are probably aware, can take a bit of time. So that's something that, anything we can do to expedite that is something that we're going to want to get onto, because the timeline on that, from a legislative standpoint of view, we would want to try to get that passed by the end of our legislative session, the end of July. Otherwise, we're out probably a year. That's the reality of it, because of the fact that we're not in session from July 31st until January of 25, when we would have to actually refile the legislation and go through that process again. So anything I can do to be helpful on that, and I know that Representative Gordon, Representative Sicolo, and Senator Friedman are all supportive of this project and willing to help in any way they can to get this over the goal line. So thank you again to everyone for your efforts, and I look forward to working with you all to see this to completion.
Thank you for your kind words and support. doesn't seem like there are other elected officials at this time who would like to speak, but feel free to let us know at any time. Now I'll hand it over to Leah, who will provide some information on how the general public can participate with their panelists tonight.
Thank you, Joe. So as we transition into our public Q&A, we have some rules of engagement to go over. First, if you want to ask a question verbally, you can click on the raise hand button. That'll put you in the queue, and when it's your turn, we'll unmute you, or we'll give you permission to unmute yourself. If you're joining us via phone today, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And if you prefer to type your question, as I see some of you have already been doing, you can click on the Q&A button and type your question in there. Please share only one question or comment at a time and limit it to 2 minutes, just so that everyone who wants to can participate in a timely manner. We have about 40 people on right now. We want to give everyone who wants to a chance to speak. And finally, just whenever you're all done with this hearing, a reminder that a survey will pop up in your browser. It's about how our virtual public meetings are being conducted, and it's very, very short. So we appreciate your feedback on that survey. And with that, we'll start the Q&A. I'll take care of the first raised hand that I see, which is from Nilesh. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? If somebody can confirm that. Okay, good. So first of all, my compliments to the entire team for a very comprehensive proposal and presentation. Very clear and nicely done. Thank you for that. I have 2 comments out here. I am very much, if I may use the word, victim of this left turn not available kind of scenario, because I live at the very junction in Glenbrook Estate and use this very often. So I'm very happy to see this thing happening. One comment I have is especially on the Bedford Street, which goes upwards towards Burlington and the Northeastern University out there. I do see there is a plan to extend probably some kind of a pathway or a footpath there, because I do see a lot of people walking. I believe they get down at the bus stop and walk on that road, and there's absolutely nothing there. I'm not sure whether that can be part of this project or not, but providing some kind of footpath on that road is something we should look at. And the second comment.
Sorry, I'm gonna
sorry.
pause you here. We do one question or comment at a time, just so it's easier to answer, and then you can rejoin the queue for your next one. So thank you for that first question.
Thank you, Leah. Josh, do you mind tackling that?
Sorry, missing the mute there. Do you mind repeating the question? I just wanted to make sure I understood. I know there was a few questions asked. I want to make sure I'm answering the correct one.
I believe it was about walking path on Bedford Street, right? Or Bedford Road. Sees people using the bus stop and then walking, and there's just no path further down, I believe. Let me know if I've paraphrased that correctly, other folks.
So right now, the project limits are only included at the intersection itself. There is a sidewalk on the north side of Bedford Road. And I know right now there is no sidewalk on the south side. It would be something we would have to work with the city of Woburn on for if a continued sidewalk on that south side of the road would be added at a later date. But at least within the intersection, project limits, we will be adding the sidewalks on both sides.
Thanks,
Thank
Josh,
you.
and thank you for the question.
All right, we'll take one more raised hand and then we'll take some written Q&A. The next raised hand is Samantha Stone. Samantha, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is actually Mayor Mike Concanon from Woburn. How are you?
Oh,
Hello.
good. Sorry we missed you earlier.
That's okay. I had a forwarded connection to the call. So we appreciate your efforts. I'm here with City Council President Jeff Dillon and Ward 7 Councilor Chuck Viola. Really just wanted to make a comment. Total support of the project. Appreciate the efforts of everyone involved. We certainly appreciate the support of our state rep, Rich Haggerty, and his comments, our whole state team. This is a long time coming. It's a key priority for the city of Woburn. And we do appreciate getting to this point. We look forward to hearing the comments from the neighbors and those involved, affected by the work. Hopefully we can incorporate their concerns and their suggestions into the final design. I was taking note of the question a minute ago about additional sidewalks. We could talk internally here with our city engineer, Jay Corey, on things we might be able to do. But really just wanted to say thank you. We appreciate getting this far. We can't wait to have it get started. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
More than happy to work with the project team on the sidewalks.
All right. So that means I can skip the comment that Samantha Stone put out. So thank you, Mayor. With that, I will pass it over to the Q&A. And the first question I see is from Peter Abrask-Haron. I apologize if I butcher your last name. Well, Peter asked, how far past the intersection will this project extend? And I believe what we see on the screen is the project limit.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but we're essentially extending, as you can see here, and there is a slight extension up north to Cambridge Street, but this is.
So would the wetland resource slide give you a better?
It's the limits are, it's approximately 800 feet north of the intersection on Cambridge Street, just short of Ray Avenue. And then south of the intersection, we're going about 670 feet to just about the entrance to the parking lot near the soccer field.
Yeah. And then to South Bedford, we're essentially going to the Innovation Campus driveway owned by or operated by Northeastern University.
Great.
If that gives you some sort of local context.
So the next question is from Valerie Castle. How will the light timing be determined? Now the lights favor Bedford Road and not Cambridge Road. It creates more problems when the timing could be adjusted to help at some level.
I think I can take this one. So we're adding additional left turn lanes on Cambridge Street, which will allow more time on Cambridge Street. And then our timings are adjusted based on our traffic counts that we took, and they're going to be it's going to be fully actuated out there. So wherever the demand is where the additional timing will go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
John Kelly asked about the storage capacity of turn lanes.
So I think I can continue. We're showing about 130 feet southbound and 85 feet northbound on Cambridge Street. That should adequately address the volume turning left on Cambridge Street. And then we're also providing right turn storage on Bedford and South Bedford Street to again alleviate the rights and the left turns from blocking the intersection.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go for one more question before I turn over to Leah. I see that a couple of hands are still being raised. So Joe Flaherty asked, has holiday traffic been considered in the plan? It's
So our,
much
sorry.
it's much it's much worse in November and December.
So our traffic counts were taking in June of 2022. And per Mass DOT's seasonal factors, June is a higher than average annual month. So our numbers are actually conservative in this case. So that should take into account the excess volume that you're seeing in November and December. And again, the traffic signals are going to be fully actuated, so they will adapt to the additional traffic that's coming through.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate your eagerness to answer these questions.
All right, I'm going to swap back to some raised hands. The next person in the queue is Mary Tarpey. Mary, you should be able to unmute yourself. Mary?
If I'm seeing this map correctly, there's the turn on South Bedford Street. If you're coming from Burlington, that sharp left-hand turn on the roadway towards Cambridge Street is not being addressed. And that turn is very dangerous. It's very narrow. People walking or riding bikes, it's dangerous for them. And you have ambulances coming up there constantly. And I was just wondering if that's something that's going to be addressed.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Josh, do you mind taking that?
That's certainly something we can look into. We did run truck turns for each one of these turning movements at each corner of the intersection. In most locations, looking at larger truck trailers that do travel along South Bedford Street. So in general, these were designed to account for truck movements through here. So everything should be adequately sized based on large vehicles making these turns.
Thank you, Josh. I see that Councillor Campbell has raised their hand. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is very exciting to finally get to this point. I am the councillor of Ward 1, which also is part of this area, as well as Councillor Viola's, which is Ward 7. There's a couple people I would love to thank. Tina Cassidy, our former planning director. She really put a lot of work into this project and really pushing it to move forward. So I really would like to thank her for that and her dedication, because this has been needed for probably over 20 years. I would also like to thank our new mayor, Mike Concannon, because I know that he is completely on board with getting this project moving forward. And one other comment, I'd like to thank the resident who suggested having sidewalks on both sides. I think that's a fabulous idea. And it's something that I believe that will be utilized by many different people, which I think is very important. So I would like to just, well, I'm just looking forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing this completed in the next couple years. So thank you so much to everybody who is helping us with this project.
Right. Thank you very much for those comments. And the last raised hand I'll take before swapping back to the written Q&A is Nilesh again. Should be able to unmute yourself. And thank you for your patience.
No problem. Thanks for giving it to me again. So one question or comment was, we are right now in March 2024, and I see that the project or the actual work starts in summer of 2026. Now, is there a way to shorten it or fasten it? Maybe I'm too new or naive, but just sort of asking that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for that. This is what we have anticipated for our project schedule. This is our latest one, so this takes into account all of the necessary durations that are required for not just for our standard design and review process, but also for environmental permitting and right-of-way procedures as well. Particularly lengthy are the MIPA permitting, as well as the Article 97 legislative process, and those add many, many months to our schedule, and those are necessary for the project to be advertised for eventual construction contract bidding. So I understand your pain. When I first started this project too, and working at Mass DOT, I was kind of flabbergasted at how seemingly slow it can be. But this is we'll do our best to get this project delivered. So thank you for your patience and appreciate your support.
Heading over to the Q&A portion. Mark Schmuckler asked, I question whether the single lane north on Cambridge and the relatively short left turn lane there will be anywhere near adequate to deal with the traffic backup on Cambridge Street. How do you know this will be adequate?
Thank you, Mark. Amy, do you mind taking on that question?
Yeah, so the actual traffic volume that's heading left will now be taken out of the through movement queues, which will note, so the through movements will no longer be blocked by the people trying to turn left. It's not going to be perfect. We're trying to accommodate all users out here. We're trying to accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. And we're doing our best to be able to, like I said, accommodate all users for what we can do out here within our limitations.
Thank you.
City Councilor Viola said that I am excited to see this project come to fruition. As it has been previously stated by Representative Haggerty, this is one of the most dangerous intersections in Woburn. As the City Councilor whose district this project will be taking place, I am very much in favor of this needed project. Thank you to everyone who has been involved thus far. Thank you for that comment. And next is Christopher Sylvia. Christopher wrote, South Bedford Road turn lanes are given for right turns. Why are right turn storage lanes needed given that right turns can turn during the straight phasing of Bedford Road, while South Bedford Road cannot turn left during the straight phasing?
So we're adding left turn lanes to Cambridge Road, and the left turn lanes are going to be protected movements. And when those left turn movements happen, we can run these right turns is what we call an overlap. So they'll be running at the same time as the left turns on Cambridge Street. There's significant traffic turning right on South Bedford Street. So that will clear out the queue faster from South Bedford Street. So the people turning through and left will have an easier time going through.
Stephen O'Leary wrote, will the stone walls at Mary Cummington's Park on either side of South Bedford and at the corner of Cambridge Street be moved or modified in any way?
Hung, do you mind going to the, oh, I forgot which slide it was.
Which slide?
It's, if you go to the first cross-section slide.
You mean this one?
No,
or...
the cross sections.
Cross-section slide. I knew that.
Once more.
Once more.
I mean, the answer is at this location, no. Josh, can you
Can I
confirm
help
that?
here?
Oh,
The-
yes, Jay.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. The ornamental wall on the northwest corner is not being touched where the Mary Cummings estate was. There is a rubble stone wall on the opposite side of the street, which is being disassembled and reassembled. And that was all worked out with the trustees of the city of Boston.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Back to that improvement slide. David Webb asked, will there be dedicated left turn signal arrows for all 4 directions?
So we're only proposing left turn lanes on Cambridge Street. So those will be the only ones with dedicated left turn arrows.
And with that, I will pass it over to Leah.
Thank you, Hung. The next raised hand is from Councillor Campbell. You should be able to unmute yourself.
I wasn't going to speak again.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just lower that hand. All right, the next up is Denise Regan. Denise, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I was looking at something else. I wrote a question. Are the bike lanes? I've done a lot of work. I'm in construction myself. I've done a lot of work, and especially Cambridge. Are the bike lanes really necessary for Cambridge Road? I mean, the point is to make this safe. There's not a lot of space to begin with, and then add in the bike lanes. I don't understand.
Yeah, thanks, Denise, for that. And I guess to answer your question, yes, it's necessary. That's the short answer. The long answer, we can talk about the legal requirements that we need for this project. I have actually, when we went out for our site walks, we have seen users who ride their bicycles through Cambridge Street or through Bedford to South Bedford. So there are users who would definitely benefit from us improving this intersection to provide bicycle facilities. And as the project team has stated previously many times, that this is an improvement for all modes of transportation at this area. So I would think that bike lanes definitely deserve to be part of that discussion.
Thank you. The next raised hand is from Christopher Sylvia. Christopher, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
So definitely want to thank everyone on this project and the elected officials and MassDOT. And I just have another question about bike lanes. So I definitely, support adding bike lanes, and I've noticed that the bike lanes on Bedford Road are protected, raised at a different grade roadway, but the bike lanes on Cambridge Road are not. And I was just wondering if they could figure out a way, given that we're pouring concrete, to protect those bike lanes as well. For a design reference, I would recommend the intersection of Somerville Avenue and Miriam Street in Somerville, which has a bus bump out so that the traffic on the 350 and 354 can be. So I'd just like to ask the project team to consider using that method to separate bike lanes.
Thanks, Christopher. We'll take a look into your suggestion. So thank you for the consideration.
All right, the next raised hand is from Rick Parker. Rick, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Rick Parker. I'm the president of the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce, and I also want to thank MassDOT, VHB for the design, but especially to the elected officials in Woburn. This has been a major pinch point for Burlington for a long period of time into one of our commercial sectors. And we're thankful for neighbors in Woburn that understand, that this has been a long overdue project and appreciate the support. Sometimes, between municipal lines, we don't always have, the working relationships to get things done. And we really appreciate it. And the same with Representative Haggerty. So just wanted to say thank you. And the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce is happy to provide any letters of support or anything that could help move this project forward as quick as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then one more raised hand, and then we'll swap back to Q&A. This raised hand is from Patricia O'Donnell. Patricia, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that this project is going to be happening because I live very close to that intersection. And one thing, like I'm always in that intersection, and it seems to be that a lot of motorists don't pay attention to the lights as they are right now. I mean, if they see the light's going to change, they blast through it. And so I'm still concerned about speed because there's just so much traffic going through that intersection and everybody is just speeding through that like it's a highway. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, not because I see even with the left-hand arrows, people are still going to be trying to be the last car through. And I just see there still being issues. And I guess I was hoping that when this project happened, that that intersection would be offloaded somehow. I know there's going up from Cambridge Street up to South Bedford Road. I didn't know if there were certain ways to just offload having so many cars go to that same intersection. And I guess that's my concern is the speed there and the fact that just so many motorists don't pay attention right now. And so I just feel like with those extra, I mean, I do love that there's extra lights and, the controlled lanes, but I just feel like people are still, there's such a high volume going through there. And I think speed is just a huge factor.
Thank you. Appreciate your concern. And yeah, this project is trying to improve on the safety aspect. Infrastructure can only go so far. Can't really change bad driving habits, nor can the department be an enforcement agency. But I believe this project is doing the best it can given the circumstances it has with limited right-of-way, and potential impacts to butters to provide a safer intersection. But we'll keep that in consideration. Unless anyone else has anything to say, I think we can move on to the remaining Q&A.
Great. Any Chatfield ask about signs? Will there be no turn on red signs at the intersection?
I think I can take this one. So as of right now, we're not proposing no turn on reds, but it's definitely something we can look into. Usually it's based on how many pedestrian volumes you have in an intersection, but it's definitely something we'll look into.
John Kelly asked about the triangular island on South Bedford Street. Would that be remaining?
No, as you can see in this slide. Yeah, we're on the right slide. Yep. That will be removed.
And then Peter asked, why did we do dedicated right turn lanes on Bedford Road / Street and not left turn lanes?
I believe Amy went over this previously, but Amy, do you mind going over it one more time?
Sure. The volumes turning right are much heavier than the volumes turning left on South Bedford Street and Bedford Street. And also, like I said earlier, with the ability to run those right turns with the left turns on Cambridge Road, we're seeing a huge benefit for this intersection.
So, I mean, with that same breath, Valerie Castle asked about the lighting timing improvement. Can that be done now when I'm waiting for 2 years for this project to be completed? Have the lights favor Cambridge Road like they used to?
Hi, Joe. My name is Brian Fallon. I'm the District 4 Project Development Engineer. We can certainly take a look at this signal from the district's perspective and see if there's anything we can do to improve it for the construction project. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. And lastly, Valerie asked, how long do we anticipate the construction to take? Understanding that depends on somewhat on poles design and what have you.
So I think we'll have a better idea once we get to review a construction contract time duration. Josh, do you know off the top of your head what you guys anticipate right now, or?
There is a number of factors. The biggest being there is a number of utility poles that are impacted by the project, which sometimes has somewhat of a long lead time for all the overhead wires to be relocated. But it would certainly, outside of the utility relocations, I would imagine at least one construction season to complete the proposed improvements.
Thanks.
I see that there's no raised hand in Q&A. Just want to point us into this slide where if you, after this hearing, think of a comment or a question, you can always email it to Mass DOT Project Management at dot.state.ma.us. And please use the project number as your subject line. The project number is 608067, Cambridge Street, intersection Woburn. As well as write your comments to Carrie LaValle, PE Chief Engineer, Mass DOT at 10 Park Plaza, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, 02116, and also use the same project number for that. Joe asked.
Sorry, I got a raised hand and got an extra question.
And then I got Joe Flaherty asking where can he find the copy of this presentation? Joe, can you answer that before raise hand?
You can, after this hearing, it'll take a couple days, if not a week or two. Depends on our IT service desk. You can visit the website shown on the screen or follow the QR code, and a copy of the presentation in PDF will be provided for you.
And actually, Joe, it looks like it's up there now.
Oh, it's up there now. So you can take a look at it right now.
Yay.
You could also see a recording of this presentation there as well.
That's definitely not up yet as this presentation is still going, but everything can be found at that QR code. I'll do one more reminder as well that once you exit the Zoom webinar, a survey will pop up in your browser, and we do really appreciate your feedback on that survey. Next, I'll take a raised hand from Patricia O'Donnell. Patricia, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I know someone had mentioned this earlier, and I agree. And I think the whole adding of a bike lane in this intersection with all the volume there is really something that I hope gets revisited. Because I think, as everyone knows, this has been a hazard intersection for quite a while. And I think introducing that to this heavily congested area is just gonna switch out one problem for another. And so that was my concern.
Thank you, Patricia, for your concern. And I understand for many road users being, drivers, it's definitely kind of a hazardous time, I guess, just, very hectic trying to look at other cars and also adding bicycles to the mix. But the truth of the matter is that bicyclists are already there right now without the adequate facilities for them to travel through this intersection. And what this project is proposing is providing safety for both vehicle users, pedestrians, and bicyclists as well. So 3 of them, not both. So it's not like this project is adding additional bicyclists. We're providing just a safer way for bicyclists to travel through this intersection. So I appreciate your concern, but we will move forward through the design with bicyclists and bike lanes in mind.
Looks like that's it for the raised hands right now. And that's it for the Q&A also. Joe, I'll let you decide how much longer you want to give it.
Yeah, we could wait a minute just to see if anyone else has lingering questions or comments. Okay. That wasn't a full minute, but it is 7:08, which is technically the next minute. Like I said, as we mentioned before, this is not the only time you can contact the department with any questions or comments or concerns you have. Please use the screen as a way to find ways to talk to us. Email, obviously preferred, but written mail also accepted, and we will respond to as many comments as possible. So the time is 7:08. If we can move to the last slide. Sorry. Yep. The time is 7:08, and I'll be closing this hearing. Good night, everyone. Thank you for your participation.